Well, hello, everybody. Welcome to the Cold War Prepper Monday night. Um, I've had a couple offers. I had the people who did my solar system who took it off and put it back on when uh, when I had the roofing done from the hailstorm. It tore up the roof, but all 24 panels are good. But they had asked if we could get collaborate and talk to people about solar, and I said sure. I don't have that set up yet. He wanted to do it tonight. I just did not have the opportunity to get anything set up. And then David Lynn, Pepper Principal, also wants to talk about solar. And so I just have not had a chance to get that set up with the death a week ago today, and then the funeral last Friday. This has just been one hectic week. And of course, she didn't have a will. She's single, or actually, she's a widow, and 3 houses and a car and a truck and all this stuff that has to be gone. So we're probably going to have to take it to probate court. So I'm going to be spending a lot of time on the road between here and there. It's about a 2.5 hour drive each way. So, just it's going to be a lot of time getting this resolved and getting it taken care of. So my plea to everybody is please, somewhere or other, keep all your financial records in one place, all your accounts, checking account, savings account, life insurance policies, all those things. Keep them together where whoever has to handle your estate can get to them. Also, any titles to vehicles or any notes that you have, whether that be a mortgage or a long-term, a short-term debt for a vehicle or something like that, credit card debt, things like that. Make sure you have those as well in one place where whoever's going to be handling your estate can get to it. Just unnecessarily elongates the process when you don't have all that taken care of. But and so we'll probably be spending 1 or 2 days a week up there for the next couple months, and so that's just the way it goes. And in the meantime, we found another $10,000 for my mother's estate, so I've got to um, get that taken care of, and that's going to be some more paperwork. Look at this. I got my hair cut for the funeral, and I had my beard trimmed, and now I can't do anything with my hair. Isn't that terrible? Okay, so welcome everybody. Let's see what we've got here. We've got Yarn Prepper, Lori Streff. Oh, Lori, welcome. So good to see you too. Well, my reading glasses aren't going to do me any good tonight. So good to see you too. I did watch a video of yours just here recently and liked on it. And gosh, things. I wish things were better for you. So Yarn Pepper says she hears I'm not well. What's wrong? Just whatever. 71. I was dusting today, and I reached up to get the Venetian blinds and dust those. Helen likes. My mother-in-law and my wife both like the way I dust and the way I vacuum because living in the barracks for quite a while when I was single, I got to be pretty good at that. So, my mother-in-law says that the traffic patterns of the vacuum on the carpet was the nicest she'd ever seen in her life. So I get to do all that. I get to do although now we have a Roomba, so I don't do the vacuuming. Helen sweeps up the dog here into piles, and then the Roomba takes the care of those. And then she mopped today while I dusted. But just old age, pulling muscles here and there and stability issues and things like that. I do have a cough of some sort. Tomorrow, of course, is my normal monthly pain management appointment. So, needles, and that's going to be fun. That's something you always look forward to. But you know what? The relief you get as a result of the needle going in is worth the needle going in. It just isn't worth it for those 5 minutes. So, other than that, no, we're doing very well. It's just we had the death in the family. Gosh, and end-stage renal is just terrible. Lori, I'm so sorry for that. So let's see who else we've got here. Scott Hummer, hello, welcome, and Yarn Prepper, just looks like 3 that have identified themselves. We got 18 watching, but only 3 or 4 have identified themselves in the chat so far. Triple G Farms. Hey, welcome. So we've got to get together because I'm driving every day from or once at least once a week now from here up to Brownwood, and so that's if you are at the halfway point. And I want to stop at Storms and get a chicken fried steak there one of these days. So we'll have to get together and coordinate that. Um, Let me see who else, and that looks like that's it. So, KP Heathen, welcome, welcome. And anybody else? Cowboy 3-2 actual. Well, so here's a little bit about that most people who aren't military wouldn't know. Um, you have a call sign basically for your unit, and then you have the number. So like 07 used to be the commander when I was on active duty. And so, you could be his radio telephone operator. And so, for example, our unit call sign was Disguise. So I was Disguise 07. And so if it was the actual commander, you'd say Disguise 07 actual. And if not, you just say Disguise 07. And then everybody knows that that's the radio telephone operator and not the actual. I don't know what a 3-2 is. Well, of course, I've been retired since 1991, and I'm sure that things have changed since then. But uh, just for those of you who don't know, that's the actual, not his radio telephone operator. So, Mitch J, welcome. Let me see who else here. Diana, too. Fantastic to see you. Thank you for being here. Oh, thank you, Yarn Prepper. Yeah, I've heard that too. And gosh, we were also, gosh, things are going around, and it's flu season, and of course you got the new strain of the cough coming around, and there's going to be all kinds of things going on. One of the things I want to talk about tonight, real quickly, uh, absolutely, Triple G. Um, I'll send you an email and let you know. I know we're going up there Wednesday, and so I'll be coming back Wednesday evening, probably Wednesday evening dinner time. Um, Buzzard Prepper, hello, welcome, welcome. Uh, well, as good as can be expected. It used to be when I was in school, Labor Day was the first day after Labor Day was the first day of school, and then of course Memorial Day was the day before, the Friday before Memorial Day was the last day of school, but we didn't have a spring break. So now it seems as if everybody starts the school 2 or 3 weeks before Labor Day, and they end a week or two after Memorial Day, and we're not getting as much learned. That's part of the problem, I think. So uh, we will have to see. Hey, Lori, one question I have to ask is, how did things go there with Idalia for you in your area? I think that went right over you, didn't it? Or was that a little bit north of you? Um, Nene Northern Prepper, and there's another one, Nene's Kitchen. Let me see the icon. That might be the same person. No. So 3rd Platoon, 2nd Squad, Senior NCO. Okay. Let me see what we got here. Spent the day canning. I am so jealous. I still don't know how to can, Sumi. So you're really going to have to teach me how. I'm all for Labor Day. I'm all for, if we can change the National Labor Relations Act of 1934, I'd be the happiest camper on the face of the earth. It is so easy to form a union. You need 50% plus one person of the vote, regardless of whether that one person is a 10th of a percent or 5% of the eligible members in that area. And however, it is illegal for the company or anyone else really to advise the employees how to get rid of the union. So once they vote them in, basically the union has carte blanche, and it's very, very, very difficult to get rid of a union once you vote them in. And if they would just change that one provision in the National Labor Relations Act, the NLRA, in from 1934 and say and make it where there's a mandatory election every 4 years. If they don't want the union anymore, they can vote it out. If they would do that one thing, I would be very happy because it's almost like permanent autocracy once you vote a union in. And so that's my only objection to that as far as labor. Well, I guess my other objection to that is uh, I'm a pro-employee guy, okay, but I'm anti-union, and so people think that if you are anti-union, you are pro-company and anti-employee, which is not necessarily the truth. I think that the employees should have the ability to negotiate for themselves. Give you an example. Um, had a couple employees that we hired, and they were supposed to be hired on a certain date. They couldn't be hired on that date because I was in the hospital with MRSA pneumonia. And so then later on, we came out. We said we were going to give uh, pay raises to everybody who'd been in as of such and such a date. Well, these three employees who didn't get hired because I was in the hospital came in and they wanted to talk to me. Well, because of the National Labor Relations Act, I can't talk to the three of them at once. I had to have three separate conversations because if I talk to two of them at the same time, that acknowledges collective bargaining. And then that basically establishes a union just by the fact that I'm talking to more than one employee on an employee grievance at one time. Three of them, certainly. They could have gone to the NLRB, the National Labor Relations Board, and said, hey, the three of us negotiated this thing with the HR director. Therefore, we are now a union. And I would have had to have recognized them because that's the way the law is. It's crazy. Uh, so let me see here. Just a lot of rain. I wish we could get some rain. We got just enough to where it dirtied my windshield. Not even enough to where you could see that it was solid wet on the driveway. Uh, oh wow, that's a good idea. And I do have the Instant Pot Max, so yeah, I will have to check into that. Scott says Labor Day first became a national holiday in 1894. It began as a union-driven agenda of planned protest to end capitalism and adopt socialism. But that's not what America wants. That you're so right. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the things that are happening around the world, and some of the things I would like for you to consider. These are some of the things that I am doing. So only because I'm doing them, I would like for you to consider them. And then again, you can also tell me that hey Lee, you're full of poo poo. So of course we've got the nuclear threat that's going on. We've had the Iskander missiles, which 2S-23, I think they are, replaced the Scud, which was and so the Scud, you had a brigade of Scuds. Now you have a brigade of the Iskanders at a army level. So, for example, we had 5 armies in Group of Soviet Forces, Germany. 1st Guards Tank Army, 2nd Guards Army, 3rd Shock Army, 8th Guards Army, and 20th Guards Army. And then each one of those had 4. Well, 20th Guards Army had 3 and 3rd Shock Army had 5, but each one of those had, on average, 4 divisions. Each division had a battalion of frogs. So the frog has been replaced as well. And, a lot newer technologies. But the frog was the short-range tactical rocket. And then the Scud was the intermediate range rocket, which has been replaced by the Iskander. So now they've deployed the Iskander into Belarusia. So that is their nuclear capable short range or intermediate range ballistic missile. And so we are kind of leery about that. And so, there is this threat right now of nuclear war. We also had a drone attack going from one belligerent towards the other, and one of the drones malfunctioned and crashed and exploded in Romania. Now, Romania is a NATO ally. So that could have been a Article 5 invocation. However, Romania said no. Yeah, we don't think it was intentional. We think it was accidental. There were no casualties. There was no significant damage. So we're not going to claim at that as an incursion. So somebody had better be very, very thankful that the Romanians are trying everything they can to avert any kind of war. But we are seeing a lot of stuff moving into Belarusia. And of course, that's aggravating things. It does appear that the side that's moving eastward uh, has made some significant gains down along towards the Krimsky Poloostrov, the Crimean Peninsula, and so that, but that's a death trap. I mean, this is trench warfare, and this is just people just murdering each other. It's unbelievable. And it's going to become a game of attrition, and pretty soon, one side is a lot larger country with a lot larger population. They can win on the attrition game. Um, there's a. I was watching some stuff today, and it's just it's brutal. I am so glad that I'm too old. Um, well, and James, so that gives me a bad reputation. Let me do this a little bit better. For around 20 years, I was a union avoidance consultant. Okay, so they're back in those days they were called strike breakers, and they actually physically did that. They basically there were clashes and armed clashes, and now we don't do that. And now companies hire me, and I have 6 weeks, or hired me, and I had 6 weeks from the time that they filed a petition to organize until the vote, that I could go in and talk to the employees, but you can't spit. Okay, so spit is an acronym. I always teach the um, management team, you can't spy on the employees. You can't promise them anything if they vote one way or the other. You can't interrogate them. So SPI. And interrogate means you can't ask them any questions about what's going on as far as the organizing, or who the organizers are, or why they're doing it, or anything like that. You can't ask any questions, basically. And then the T is threat. So you can't threaten that if they, for example, if you vote the union in, we will close down this company. That's a threat. And so employees don't want to lose their jobs, so they would vote against it. But that would be considered a threat. And if you do any one of those four things and they can prove it to the NLRB, then it's considered an automatic recognition. So I would go in and talk to the companies about what they can and cannot do. Then I took a copy of the NLRA, the act itself, and I would talk to the employees. I said, now your managers can't do these four things, but the union can. Isn't that strange? They can lie to you. They can threaten you. They can interrogate you. They can make promises that they won't keep, and it's terribly one-sided. It's very lopsided. So just showing the employees the law. I only lost one vote in 20 years. So when I went in, of course, now there was a Kmart vote in what was the name of that town? It was in Georgia. Marietta. No. Was it Marietta? It's where they filmed, afterwards they filmed The Walking Dead there. But anyhow, there was a Kmart there, a Kmart distribution center. I went to do a union avoidance thing there. And the union that was trying to get in, there was only one hotel in town. So the union organizers at one end of the hotel, and then my team was at the other end. And we would cross paths going to dinner and everything else. But when I went back one day and they were in my room going through my computer, trying to get into it, and I called the sheriff, and the sheriff said, no, they are allowed to do that. That's they're allowed to do almost anything they want in order to form a union. And I said, well, that's it. Then they found out my personal information, started threatening me and my life and my wife and my children and everything else. And I said, time to leave this job. So that's when I kind of left. Dragon Slayer, welcome. Good to see you. So anyhow, but we've got, of course, the nuclear war threat, World War III threat. If you have read the two Chinese colonels, and they have a book called Unrestricted Warfare: How We're Going to Defeat America. What you find out is it's the same thing as what General Flynn talks about with his fifth generation warfare in his book, Fifth Generation Warfare. And you've got all these different things that are disparate. They don't seem to link up with each other. So you've got a fire over here, you've got a derailment over here, you've got a water purification plant going down over here. There's just no sense. It's all random. But it is part of the plan that it is going to be all random. and that nobody's going to know what the other persons are doing. And it's going to, you take down the infrastructure so that so that the people are beaten down. Take down their uh, cattle production, take down their egg production, take down their chicken production, all this different stuff that's been going on for the last year or two. Now, along with that, you have to realize that we've got somewhere in the vicinity of 30,000 estimated Chinese who were fairly well dressed in clean tennis shoes, military age, unaccompanied, clean shaven, and everything else, and who came across the border in the last 2 years. Where are they now? What are they doing? Do you realize that that's about 6 divisions worth of infantry that of the Chinese, possibly of the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy, who are here in the United States, and we don't know where they are or what they're doing? That's enough to scare you. So you've got that. We've also got a lot of turmoil internally. Right now, it appears that 46% of the vote goes to Biden, 46% of the vote goes to Trump at the last poll that I saw. And these people are extremely contentious with each other. I mean, nobody's talking, everybody's arguing. And so if that doesn't cause some sort of conflict in our country in the near future, I don't know what will. We've got this perception of a two-tiered justice system. As far as I'm concerned, that perception appears to be real. A lot of people are very, very upset about that we've had one president who was impeached based off of an anonymous tipster. We still don't know who the tipster was or who the leaker was, who gave a leak to a person on the House Judiciary Committee, and he said the president was thinking about doing something illegal. So they impeached him based upon a hearsay of a leaker who said that he thought the president was thinking about doing it. In the meantime, we have a vice president who went on TV bragging about doing what the other one was impeached for thinking about doing, and nothing has been done to that vice president. And so, that appears to be a very disparate justice system where one side gets punished and the other side does not. And one side is held to a higher standard than the other side. And, it's just, there's crazy stuff going on. Now we can talk about weather. We've had a terrible, terrible drought and heat this summer. Today was the second day below 100 in the last 95 here in Central Texas. We've also got a stage 3 drought going on here, which means you can't use any outdoor water whatsoever. So, what is that doing to our hay fields? What is that doing to our cattle production? This is all here in this area. We've got 3 crops. We've got cattle, we've got hay, and corn. We used to have cotton. The most fertile cotton land in the U.S. was only about 30 miles northeast of here, near the town of Granger. And then they dammed up that creek, and now that's a big lake. It's a big fishing lake. So the most fertile cotton soil in the U.S. is now underwater. That happened back in the 1830s. I think it was a Central Corps of Civil Engineering. The CCC did that back in the 30s, along with the Lower Colorado River Authority. So we've got, and they're predicting that with El Nino, we're going to have an extremely unusually cold winter. So it's probably going to be another repeat of Ice-mageddon here in Central Texas, 2021, 2023. So, it appears that we've got increased racial tensions. I thought we were way past that, but evidently we're not. There's just so much going on in our country that we have to have a solid plan on what is it that we are going to do and how are we going to do it. Provident Prepper, which is one of my favorite channels, Kylene and Jonathan, and he put out a short today, and he was talking about, he had lunch yesterday with a friend, and he says, given all these things that are going on in our country, If you knew it was going to happen tomorrow, you have 24 hours right now to do your catch up. What are the things that you would do right now to catch up in preparation for tomorrow? And I would like for you to do that exact same exercise. What are some of the things that you would like to do? Well, um, so of course, water is going to be my number one concern. Even though I have 400 gallons worth of rainwater catchment, even though I have probably 1,000 gallons stored throughout the house, and I'll probably get another 350 gallons in my bathtub. I still want more water. So water is going to be a number one for me. There are some foodstuffs that I would like to get more of. I would like to get more flour. Um, I would like to get more canned meat. Now, the bad thing is here in Central Texas, I have never seen Keystone ground beef or Keystone turkey or chicken on any market shelf here in Central Texas. Have never seen it on the shelf at all. So the one time I have seen it was at the commissary at Fort Hood, and I didn't pick it up because it was, I thought it was overpriced. But when I do a price comparison to freeze dried, it's right along the same price. So, we might take a trip up to Fort Hood and get some Keystone food. And then again, I might order some directly from Keystone. Fiexers, howdy, welcome. Um, and so number one's going to be water. Number two is going to be canned meats. And number three is flour. I do have that Vesta um, or Instafire oven, and but it uses the canned heat, so that's going to be either safe heat or the sterno. And when you use the sterno outside, then the safe heat inside. So I can do bake some bread, probably bake bread for the entire neighborhood. But I'm going to need a lot more flour to do that. Helen and I were looking for the last 3 days. We've been looking at getting a grinder, a grain grinder. I've never had one. I've never had whole wheat or whole corn. And, the more and more I look into it, the more and more I'm just concerned. Tomorrow, I will probably go over to the LDS Provident Living Store and pick up a couple more cases of flour. You know, I'll just go ahead and buy the flour. It's got a shelf life of like 10 years. That's okay. It's okay. I expect things are going to happen before 10 years. So water, uh, food, fuel. Got a gas generator. Probably going to out of. I can probably take right now. I think I have 4 or 5 gallon cans. I only have one of those filled, um, simply because I'm getting to the point where I'm too old to lift that jerry can up. I don't like those new necks that the EPA mandates, and then having to hold it and pour it into the vehicle in order to start it, in order to use it. And to me, they're more unsafe than safe. And I don't know what OSHA was thinking when they came out with them, but anyhow, so I've got 4. Only one of them is full. Probably fill up the other 3. Probably look for more butane. Probably look for more charcoal. Probably look for more wood. The fireplace wood packets that you can get at stores. $7 for basically 50 cents worth of wood. Get some of that, because that would be very, very beneficial for the grill. It would also be very beneficial to have for the Dutch oven. And of course, I would like to get as much of the safe heat as I can. I do have an indoor Mr. Buddy for heating as well. So get some of those green propane canisters for that. And then I have the one burner stoves, and those use Bernzomatic propane or butane, and those come in 4-packs. So pick up a whole bunch more of that. So just different kinds of fuel. Then I would like to concentrate on some medication. Of course, we're going to be very concerned about insulin. We're going to be very concerned about needles, about what are they called? The test strips for blood sugar, for the finger prick. Get all the necessary supplies that we can for diabetes management over the course of that time. I would probably like to get a whole bunch more of the lidocaine type patches and roll-on lidocaine for my back injuries because I know I'm not going to have pain management. I'm not going to be able to go in and get that, you know, under the X-ray needle into the spinal cord. That's probably not going to happen once SHTF happens. So what can I do as far as having an alternative? And that's going to have to be a topical alternative. But, I think that you can probably get it to where it's going to permeate the skin. So, number 5 is going to be medications. So those would be my concerns. Those would be the things that I wanted to do. I might pick up a couple more either CB radios or GMRSs as a sixth option. Right now, I have enough GMRS for 5 LPOPs, listening posts, observation posts. And the reason I say that is because I have 10 GMRS. And so I'm going to have 5 in the charger and 5 out for use at any one time. So, charging some while I'm using the others and going through that cycle. But communications would be another concern I would have for my neighbors here in the neighborhood and how we're going to communicate that way. I'm trying desperately to get them into the communications thing with getting GMRS, FRS, or CB radio. Everybody is really tuned on to the Baofangs and the Yaesus and all these other UHF, VHF repeater dependent systems. Now, they can be used line of sight. I have to tell you, they can be used line of sight, which is going to have a maximum range of about 12 miles. They get even better range if it has line of sight with the repeater and you're plugged into that repeater. But, you're not going to use them too much for what you might call typical ham communications. So those are my thoughts. What are your thoughts? What would you do as far as getting? What are some of the things that? Nene, have a nice evening. Take care. What are some of the things you would add to that list, or some of the things that you would subtract from it? Um, Scott, I'm almost in agreement with you. I think that we're at that point. I my personal belief, and this is anecdotal, it's not historical because a lot of historians are going to tell me I'm full of poo-poo. I think the real thing that got us to recover from the Great Depression was the mobilization for World War II. And so we took a large number of the male factory workers and trained them into. So even if we say that World War II started or the Great Depression ended officially in 1939 and we started on the recovery path, that's about the time we started arming up for World War II. That was when it started in Europe. Of course, it had already been going on for a year or two in Asia. But then we really weren't involved. And let's call it 1942. Because we didn't do anything during the month of December at all, except try to recover what we lost at Pearl Harbor. So we really, we were in it for maybe 2.5 years, 1943, 1944 until May of 1945, August of 1945 in the Pacific, May of 1945 in Europe. So, just gearing up for that, gearing the production up for that, losing a lot of the male manufacturers, replacing them with female manufacturers, and then concentrating a lot of that manufacturing towards the war industry is what really saved us from the Great Depression, in my opinion. And I think that that's what Scott's alluding to here, is that we have gotten ourselves in so much debt, both with lending money, equipment, guarantees, F-16s and everything else to the war effort in Europe. We've gone through this crazy thing of the lockdown and trying to recover from that and everything else. The southern border is out of control. What really gets me is, if you look at it, we have promised $700 per family to the victims in Hawaii. And yet, if you come across the border illegally, the federal government's giving you $2,200 per person per month. And we're taking better care of people who are breaking our laws and coming into our country than we are taking care of our own citizens. And that's, I have a feeling some people are, that's going to cause some major consternation as well. So I think that we are at that debt point to where we've got to do something totally different in order to eradicate the debt and get us out of the debt that we're in. And it's not going to look pretty. It's not going to be pretty at all. Um, Hello, Great Lakes. Welcome. Great Lakes Reliance. Fantastic. Um, so let me see here. Dragon Slayer says that she's quite sure, or he is quite sure, that the racial tension is being manufactured. We just caught a Nazi group near Disney World, and it turns out of the 22 people, all but 2 were FBI. That would not surprise me. Here's another surprising one for you. That day in January. If you take a look at every Trump rally that ever occurred prior to that day, there was a counter rally being held by BLM and Antifa. And I mean, they were there, yelling and Nazi signs and all these other kinds of things. And they weren't there for that day in January. Where were they? Were they integrated into the crowd? And we also know we have some things where Congressman Jordan is requesting some things, and and they're saying, well, we can't give that to you. That's part of an ongoing investigation. But Jim Jordan is convinced that there were undercover FBI agents instigating the crowd to do some of the things that they did as well. There, as a matter of fact, there are some DC police officers who said that they were encouraged to encourage. So the smallest unit is a fire team, and a fire team is 5 people, usually headed by a corporal or a buck sergeant. 2 fire teams to a squad, and that's usually headed by a staff sergeant. 4 squads to a platoon, headed by a second lieutenant and a sergeant first class. So that's about 45 people in a platoon. 4 or 5 platoons to a company, so usually around 165, 180 people to a company. That's headed by a first sergeant and a captain. Then you have 4 companies to a battalion. So a battalion has somewhere in the vicinity of 1,200 men, and 600 men, and that's going to be headed by a lieutenant colonel and a sergeant major. Then you can, depending on how the organization goes from there, you can have 4 battalions to a brigade, or you can have 4 battalions to a regiment. We're going to independent brigades now, so usually that's going to be 3 or 4 battalions, around 1,200, 1,800 men to a brigade, and then you're going to have right at around 6,000 guys to a division. You can have as many as 12,000 in a division. So that gives you a little bit of idea about the size. But the smallest independently maneuvered unit is going to usually be a battalion with a lieutenant colonel in charge. So I've been Dragon Slayer. That's a great idea. Thank you so much for bringing that up. Like I told you, we've been looking into grinders. We've been looking into wheat berries, also looking into corn, so we could do corn meal. And one of the things that I did was that we have a lady here in the Austin area, and she has a cooking school. And I've been watching all of her videos on how to do sourdough, and she recommends starting your sourdough with rye berries and rye wheat. And she says that actually it works better than starting it with wheat flour, and that she can get her sourdough starter within 4 days using rye. So I have assembled a sourdough kit, if you will. I also have a whole bunch of yeast in the freezer. watching her, she says that she recommends if you're going to store yeast, that you store instant yeast, whereas I've been doing the traditional uh, yeast, which takes a little bit of time to bloom. The freeze-dried yeast, she says, blooms faster. It's made to bloom in the machine. So, I think that one of the things that anybody here can do, if you want to think about adding value to your community in a post-apocalyptic world, making bread or tortillas or flatbread or something like that might be one of those things. So stocking up on plenty of flour, especially long-term storage flour, knowing how to make yeast, knowing how to make sourdough, uh, getting an oven to do that. So remember, I have whole house solar. So what we do is we have a bread making machine, and I can use that's one way we have of making bread. The second way we have of making bread, of course, is flatbread on a pan. You can also make some raised bread in pans, um, and that's kind of like a muffin. Then I have the uh, Dutch oven is a fantastic way to make bread, especially cornbread. And then, of course, we have the what is it, Vesta Instafire oven that I showed you the unboxing that I got for my birthday. I'll have to do a loaf of bread and show that to you how it works. But yeah, so if you can figure out a way to get an oven of some sort and learn how to make bread, I think you would be invaluable to your community, and they would love you to death, and you could almost get anything you wanted for a loaf of bread. Um, Little Lone Prepper is agreeing that she wants to add first aid supplies and medicine, and at least a basic first aid handbook. Let me tell you, there are two really, really good first aid guides. The first one is going to be Dr. Dr. Bloom, Dr. Boom, Dr. Nurse Amy. I'll put it down below. He's got a fantastic survival medicine handbook. He's also got one on antibiotics. He's got one on pandemics. Just really, really great info. The other one is the American Heart Association has put out a fantastic first aid book. But the thing is, know as much of it as you can, because you don't want to have an arterial bleed while you're trying to look up in a book how to control an arterial bleed. That's probably not going to work. Great Lakes says, hopes everybody has emergency comms squared away. Ham radio communication will be very important. So as I said, don't be totally dependent upon the UHF, VHF ham radios, the Baofangs and the ASUs. There is nothing I would love more than to have a shortwave transceiver, 30-meter shortwave transmitter that's going to be somewhere in the vicinity of 3 megahertz up to maybe 20 megahertz, in that vicinity. That's and single sideband amplitude modulation. If I could have that kind of a setup, I would be the happiest camper on the face of the earth. If I could have a ground plane antenna about 35 feet up in the air, I would even be happier, especially if it is you've got polarization, and I'm going to say bipolar. So I just want to make sure I explain this. Polarization, when you have an antenna that sticks up like this, okay, then the signal comes out this way, right? So that's going to be vertical polarization. So in order to receive a signal that's sent on an antenna like this, you have to have an antenna like this. Now, if they use a long wire, which is they have two poles and then they have a wire in between, typically that's going to be perpendicular to where that wire is. So if it's going this way, your signal is going to go this way. Okay, so and then you're going to cut that wire to the wavelength that you're actually transmitting and receiving on. It only has about a 5-degree variance, from this perpendicular to this arc here. Now, the further out you go, the easier it is to be inside that cone. But so if you have a bipolar, and that's called horizontal polarization. So if you have a bipolar system, like a ground plane antenna that has ground planes that come out that are horizontally, have horizontal polarization, and a vertical polarized system, then you can pick up everything. So, that's my ultimate dream. I would love to have a Yagi, but That is not going to happen on my income. I can guarantee you that. Uh, Craig Davis, hello, welcome. Great advice. Thank you. No, I'm in Texas, and I know there's a lot of other people here, but coal. I know that there are. Uh, I've seen pictures. Well, when I was doing some union avoidance work in Reading, Pennsylvania, carpenter steel. Um, I noticed that a lot of the houses there had the coal bins where the coal truck would come up and drop coal into the houses, and that's what they used for heat in the winter. So yeah, I know that's common there in the area around Valley Forge, which is now called King of Prussia. We stayed at the hotel there. Oh, I also worked for the Limerick nuclear power plant, and which is just west of Limerick, just east of Limerick, just west of Reading. I'm sorry, just east of Reading. It's just west of King of Prussia. And the PECO, Pennsylvania Electric Company, had three power plants. They had the Peach Bottom down on the border with Maryland, which was the very first power plant brought online in the U.S. They had 3 Mile Island, the only one that's had an accident in the U.S., and then they had um, Limerick, which was the last one that was brought online in the U.S. So quite a threesome as far as power plants that they had there. No, so you have four different frequency spectrums. Let's call it. Okay, so in ham, you have it's originally ham was what we call shortwave, and in the 20 and 30 meter band. So that was up to as high as say 30 megahertz, and it was all amplitude modulated. In the late 70s, early 80s, they got into repeaters and they got into VHF. Now, VHF is typically 30 to 300 megahertz. And the transmissions there are going to be higher than that. They're going to be, say, 100 to more. I might have a chart here that shows me the freq ranges. See, all my stuff I want to memorize that I don't have memorized. No, it's not in here. I took it into the other room. But you can look up the freq ranges. GMRS is a totally different, they have pre-tuned frequencies, totally different from FRS, which is totally different from CB radio. So you got four different radios. They do not intercommunicate with each other. Now that I've said that, I will tell you that there is a new Baofeng, the UV8, I believe it is, that does have mixed compatibility with ham radio and GMRS. So you can program into the UV8 some of the GMRS frequencies. So that's where you're going to have the interoperability. Other than that, what you're going to have to do is you're going to have a commonality of type of radio, or you're going to have somebody with more than one. For example, the guy who runs our communications for our group has all four radios set up in his kitchen. He's in an apartment, and so that little, and he's single. So that little, what would you call it? The breakfast bar that goes between the kitchen and the dining room, all of that is nothing but radios. So so he mans that, and he can communicate with us anything he hears on the other ones. There is an organization called AMRRON, AMRRON, American Radio Relay or Redoubt. Anyhow, it's based off of John Jacob Schmidt is the guy who organized it, and it's in his partisan operator journals. And part of that AMRRON is what they call the Channel 3 effort. So what they want everybody to do is, if anything happens, all preppers go to Channel 3 of whatever radio they're using, and we'll be able to communicate that way. Somebody might have a GMRS that's also on FRS, so they can hear something on FRS and transmit it all over the GMRS system, and that way you share as much information as possible. Thank you, Triple G. And it would also help if you subscribed. Thank you very much for that. Oh, by the way, tomorrow night we are going to be finishing up our book for the nonfiction book club, and we're finishing up United We Stand. This is David Kobler's book. He's the Southern Prepper One, and how to build your emergency preparedness network. So we got the last 2 chapters of this book tomorrow night. I have decided I really, really like it, and it was a difficult choice. 2 really good books that I've been reading recently. I've been reading Food Storage for Preppers. This has a 52-week plan on what you can do to get totally ready for whatever's going to happen. Great book, but there's no way that we can do this book that I don't give away so much information that it doesn't cause you not to, it would cause you not to want to buy the book. I would much rather you buy the book, support the author. I mean, he put a lot of effort into a phenomenal, fantastic book. And so just there's no way I could break this up and give it as a nonfiction book. And then you would say, well, I need the book. I want you to get the book. So I have decided we're going to be using, Matt Kelly's book, the book on situational awareness. So 2 weeks from tomorrow, we will start on chapters 1 and 2, I believe. This has got so many great little, we're going to do 2 chapters. So that'll be 2 weeks from tomorrow. That will be the 19th of September is when we'll start this one. And so that's where we are with that. I don't know. I really don't know. I was on a channel the other day, and people have been saying no more than 2 emojis, and they're really dogging people for no more than 2 emojis. And I'm a moderator on that channel. I said, I have never heard of this. Where did this come from? And nobody could say where it came from. One guy says, well, I heard it when I was watching so-and-so's channel. And I said, okay, has YouTube said anything to anybody? Has anybody gotten a correction or a note, or have you seen a policy change or anything like that? Well, it's just considered spam. I said, that's your opinion. I would like to know who says you can't use more than 2 emojis, and that nobody could come up with it. So as far as I'm concerned, emoji away until I see it in writing from YouTube, then that's a rumor and not a rule. But same thing with this. I don't know if that's a forbidden word or not. I know that the belligerents in the ongoing war, mentioning their names is a no-go. Mentioning the cough, the disease itself is a no-no. So there are some no-nos that they've said, please don't do this. It's considered disinformation or propaganda, and so we stay away from those things. You know what, Keith? I'm 71. I just turned 71, and other than the fact that I've made a promise. February 1st, 1991, the day I retired from the Army, I had been attached to a Special Forces unit, and those guys are crazy. Ran 5 miles every morning, and then we ran 14 miles on Wednesdays. And I promised myself the day I retired that I would never run another step for the rest of my life. I've been able to keep that promise now since 1991. So that's what, 23, 32 years that I haven't ran, and I have no intentions of ever running again. Now I'll ride a bicycle, for cardio. I'll walk, but I'll never run again. So other than that, it's not too bad. I walk with a cane from a broken hip, and then of course I had some real bad back injuries from the military and from a car wreck. So other than that, I'm pretty happy. I was in a very small unit. uh, well, I'd say small, but there were only like 1,200 of us that were ever assigned there over the course of the time that it was open. And I showed a picture of it last time. Fuel Station Augsburg, USASA, FSA, USASA, U.S. Army Security Agency, Fuel Station Augsburg. And every October, one of the guys puts out on Facebook a memorial for all the guys who have passed away. And it started out the first year, where it was like, 3 or 4 or 5 minutes, 15 seconds per person. Now it's to the point where it takes half hour, 45 minutes, 15 seconds per person. And, you think of all these guys that you worked with for 3 years at a time, became totally dependent upon, just Army buddies. And like one guy, we were together. We went to intermediate Russian together, he and his wife. Well, we started off, I was sent TDY to open La Fervite at Fuel Station Augsburg. And he and his wife were at Det Wobeck. And so they came down to La Fervite as part of the startup team as well. So we were together there for about 6 months. Then we were separated for 6 months. Then we went to intermediate Russian together, and that was a year, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, intermediate Russian. Then from there, we all went to Fuel Station Augsburg together. So the 3 of us worked together at Fuel Station Augsburg for 3 years. Then from there, we all went to Goodfellow Air Force Base, where we taught basic Russian voice intercept. And we were there as instructors for 3 years together. So we had almost 8 years that we were together, side by side, same rank and everything else, doing things the same way. So, you start having people like that you are in these memorials in October. And I started crying, and Helen came up and patted me on the back. She says, "But you're still here." That's the key thing, is I'm still here. And so are you. So are we, and when I take a look at it from that perspective, it's something else. The guy who got me into stamp collecting, he was one of the first ones to go. And gosh, every commander I had there is gone. But they were a little bit older than I was anyway. But it's just something else. Do me a favor, sue me and Great Lakes. If you have a recommendation on a 20-30 meter band transceiver, I would greatly appreciate knowing what it is you recommend. Yes, you are absolutely correct, Little Lone Prepper. I think that's another one of those things we have to take into consideration, and that is, what are we going to do with disposing of our waste, whether that be trash or human waste? What are we going to do with bodies? So all of that's going to become extremely important. You don't want to attract rodents. You don't want to attract insects. You're going to have to take that a little bit of distance away from where you are. Probably, fire is probably going to be one of the best ways to consume it. But then again, not all metals do that. You can get 55 gallon metal drums delivered to a pickup point through Azure Standard. They have them, and then you just cut some holes in them, turn it into a burn barrel. You can probably also get that at your local Tractor Supply store, somewhere like that, and that would be great. Dragon Slayer, I don't know about kerosene. I would assume that that's going to be okay, because we used to have kerosene. My grandmother had kerosene lanterns in her house, and we thought those were safe. Nothing happened to us. Maybe it fractured my mind. I don't know, but liquid paraffin, absolutely. Any kind of paraffin, candles, liquid paraffin, solid paraffin, beeswax, soy candles. Any of those are going to be fantastic for light and for heat, and it produces both. So yes, I think both of those are great. GMRS and CB radio will give you only about 10 miles. Ham radio, you can talk state to state and all around the world. Getting info is key. So Great Lakes, I'm going to totally agree with you, but I'm also going to qualify that. GMRS, CB, FRS is line of sight. VHF, UHF, line of sight. So typically, and typically if you're on the water, okay, the horizon is about 12 miles away. Now you can, if there's differences in altitude, that can extend that. But generally speaking, in a suburban, rural, where there's trees and all those kinds of attenuations, yes, 10 miles is absolutely correct. Now, when you say ham radio, we have to clarify that. If we're talking of the fact that we're doing a tropospheric bounce and we're doing a ground wave, yes. If you're using tropospheric scatter, you can talk around the world. And when I was in Monterey, we had a gunny sergeant, a Marine gunny sergeant, and he was taking basic Russian while I was taking intermediate Russian. And I'd go up to his room and he had his rig set up. And when we were in Monterey, California, we were talking to Soviets who were stationed in Cuba. So, that's how far that communication could go. Now, we had to do it in Morse code because the Soviets were restricted. They could not speak voice on their ham sets. They had to only use international Morse. So we were restricted to that. But yes, you can with HF shortwave, AM, continuous wave, or single sideband. You can go around the world with that. So that's what I would strongly recommend. That's what I strongly recommend everybody would want. So with that, I'm going to wholeheartedly agree with you. Okay. Gosh, we're at 1 hour and 1 minute. I guess we need to wrap this up. Anything? Let me get down here to the bottom. It looks like I'm way far away from the bottom. It would not surprise me if we don't have another lockdown so that we can use mail-in votes, because we saw how uncontrolled the mail-in votes are. And, so I'm not going to say anything one way or the other than the fact is we sure don't have the same amount of control over a mail-in vote as we do an absentee vote, as we do a ballot vote. Now, what's the difference between a mail-in vote and an absentee vote? So a mail-in vote, you just fill out the thing and mail it in, right? An absentee vote is, especially for the military, when I was overseas, I participated in every election. And so we would get our ballot, and that ballot would be sealed. And we'd open up the seal in front of a commissioned officer. And then we would go into a corner, and he would hand us the ballot, inspect it, make sure it wasn't pre-marked. He would hand us the ballot. We would go where he could see us, but not see what we were doing, and make sure we weren't reading our notes or anything like that. And we would mark it just as if we were in a booth in the U.S. Once we got it all marked up, we would fold it up. There was another envelope. He would put our ballot inside that envelope. He would seal it, and then he would notarize it that he witnessed me. He checked my identification. He knew who I was. I was validly registered to vote. I was the proper person through proven ID to submit this ballot. That was then stuck inside another envelope, and that envelope was mailed to my precinct for voting purposes. So you see, there's a lot of control on an absentee ballot, proving that I am who I am and I'm eligible to vote in order for that ballot to be counted. And it's even certified, notarized inside that envelope. With a mail-in ballot, you don't have that. Somebody can just go out and photocopy a whole bunch of ballots, mail-in ballots, stuff them in envelopes, and they're good to go. That's what we found out, and that's what we don't want to happen again. Hello, Grateful Preps, New Jersey. Welcome, Buzzard Prepper. Diana, too. I wouldn't try to go out at all. I would try witness to my prodigals. Would tell all family and special friends I love them. So I've been doing a series of shorts using primarily Bear Creek Country Foods, the soups. I am convinced that if we really want to have nutrition, if we want to have easy to prepare, if we want to have easy to store foods that we can expand on by adding items to them, soups, stews, chowders, and casseroles are the way to go. So I've been doing a whole bunch of shorts on how to expand on Bear Creek soups. And I believe very strongly in what you might call the stone soup or the nail soup. And that is, I'm going to put a pot out there with a starter in it. If you want to get some of my soup, you got to put something in it, a can of corn, a can of tomato sauce, whatever. If you put something in, you can get something out. If you don't put anything in, you can work for it. You can do, if you do 8 hours of guard duty, I believe that 8 hours of work, you should be able to feed a family of 4. If you bring firewood or charcoal, if you bring water to keep the pot going, those will count. So lots of different ways that we can add to that. So those are all those shorts I've been putting out. I put another one out today, and it was on spaghetti. Stray Kitten, I guess I missed it. I'm sorry. Let me go up and see if I can find it. Oh, hi, Dragon Slayer. Uh, yes, I did answer that. I thought I did. That is not one of those words that we can't use that I'm aware of. Um, but that looks like something I would like to try. Um, so thank you for that recommendation. I'm going to go ahead and try to pick that up sometime here in the near future. HEB tells me you're a Texan. All right. I just sent two HEB water bottles to my grandsons who are in New Jersey. Thank you, Lori. That's a great idea. I appreciate that. EMP doctor is phenomenal. You do realize he does all the EMP for NASA. He is probably the expert on EMP in the U.S. And he also has a couple good prepper um, nonfiction prepper guides on how to take care of things. He has a fiction series called the Survivalist series, and it's a good series. I didn't care for it as much as some others simply because it's kind of like got zombies in it, and I'm not into zombies. I'm more into the actual post-apocalyptic. What people are going to be bad enough. We don't need zombies. Uh, Butch is in Colorado. Okay, I think that's about going to be it. Oh yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Fiexers. We had I went in today when I was doing my dusting, and I noticed that there was a drip coming out of. We have two sinks in the master bathroom, and so Helen's sink, the cold water, was dripping out. So I tried to turn it off, and it wouldn't turn off. And I said, Helen, did you know you had a drip or a leak in your faucet? She said, no, I didn't know that. And I said, okay, well, I need to fix it. So I went to McCoy's, and McCoy's is a local Texas lumber company. And I got the piece, the innards for that faucet. And I said, give me two of them, just in case, So now when something breaks here in the house and it's something I have to buy a replacement for, I'm buying two. So thank you for that recommendation. Fiexorus, that's an outstanding recommendation, and I should have mentioned that earlier. Yes, you are absolutely correct. Get more and more repair supplies, especially home repairs and things like that. Okay, I think I saw somebody say something about unions. Uh, but like I said, the Baofeng and the most popular one here is UV5R. That is a UHF VHF system. So once the repeater towers go down, it becomes a line of sight only system. So you're probably going to get somewhere around 10 miles if you're lucky, depending upon the total output wattage. Uh, I don't know. I'll definitely give it a try. Yeah, that's where we're going to go. And I don't think it's a restricted word. So um, okay, so that's where we are. Remember that we're all in this together, so we can come out the other side together. Tomorrow night, the final chapters on what to do with this book. Here it is. United We Stand. We'll finish that book up tomorrow night. We'll take a week break in between, and that'll give you time. I'll put the link out so you can buy that book that we'll be doing 2 weeks from tomorrow. So remember, we're all in this together so we can come out the other side together. Please be kind, polite, and respectful to each other because togetherness is the key. Oh, by the way, I did see, and I'll put a link here, the UV8, Baofeng that is programmable combination ham, UHF, VHF, and GMRS, two of them for $54 on Amazon. So I'll put the link down below. Y'all have a wonderful week. Take care. Bye bye.